Round 5 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship takes us to OULTON Park in Cheshire. After picking up their 4th class win of the season at Donington Park last time out, Paul Bailey and Andy Schultz arrive here as overall championship leaders. What's more, the pair qualified fastest in their Class 2 SB Race Engineering Ferrari, beating a number of higher performance Class 1 cars to pole position. Joining them on the front row of the grid for Race 1, the Simon Green Motorsport prepared McLaren 650S of Lee Frost and Lucky Kerr. Meanwhile, row 2 comprises the JPR Motorsport Sega of Paul Rose and the sister car of Steve Harris and Fun Cup Endurance champion Chris Hart. A promising start to the weekend after reliability issues hampered the early part of the season.
Big learning curve, I think. Completely different to what we've been doing. But yeah, we're getting there with it now. The car ran well yesterday. Whether it's going to make up for it today will be another story. But no, it's we're getting on top of it now. It's looking good.
It's a great car. Yeah, like Steve said, a few learning curves with the car itself. We're really getting there with the setup now. No, I think weather's good for it. Car's looking good. Home track, it'll be all right.
Another team that's endured poor fortune so far this season is BPM Motorsport, but the Seat of Ash Woodman and former Britcar champion Martin Byford is a proven frontrunner in Class 4.
Oh, it's a podium car without a shadow of a doubt. We've had some issues, we've got some now at the moment. We've got a power issue, so for the first 4, 5, 6 laps it's on it, and then we lose power, pull 5th gear, that's costing us time. So the guys are now making changes, and if we're on pace and we've fixed it, I expect a podium.
Amongst BPM's competition in Class 4 this weekend is Tim Docker. He's scored 6 class podiums so far this season, including a victory in the previous round at Donington Park. Not only has that put him at the head of the Class 4 standings, but he's also risen to 2nd in the overall championship, behind only the Ferrari of Bailey and Schultz. Also on the grid this weekend is a team that knows how to win a title at this level. Father and son Rick and Brad Nevison returned to Britcar for the first time since they won the 2017 Sprint Championship.
It was our first full season in Britcar. It was a season we decided to put maximum commitment into. We're only sort of novice drivers at the time really, and it worked out for us. I think consistency was a key. Good team, good car, reasonable drivers, and came out on top, which was pretty incredible. Really enjoyed it.
A key reason for their return to action this weekend is that OULTON Park is the home circuit of Track Focused, the team that runs their Porsche Cayman.
Yeah, it's a local track for us as well. We're only sort of like 20 minutes, half an hour away as well. It's sort of the track we learned to do the majority of our racing on as well with Sean and the team. So for us, like, Britcar's a great championship. Wanted to get back involved with everybody. Claire's great who organises it all. The rest of the teams are all competitive, so it just seemed ideal for us to get involved this weekend.
So this is how the top 10 line up. With outright victories so far this season, the VR Motorsport Praga of Tim Gray and Grant Williams should be one to watch from 5th on the grid. And just behind them, the 3 Porsches of Track Group, Beluga Racing and SG Racing are all huddled together as they contest Class 3 honours for the first race of the weekend. So 60 minutes of endurance racing coming up. Unfortunately, we've already lost one car though. The Tockwith Motorsport Ginetta of Mo Ritson and Sarah Moore has stopped out on the formation lap. But for the rest, the lights go out and the race gets underway. And it's a terrific start for the green Seika of Chris Hart, looking to go down the inside. It's 3 abreast here. There's almost contact. It's going to be the McLaren that gets into the lead of the race. Lucky Kerr ahead of Paul Bailey, then Chris Hart in 3rd. And then we've got the black Seika being delayed by all of that of Paul Rose, which means the green and black Moss Motorsport BMW, driven by Mike Moss, gets through into 4th place. So Lucky Kerr from the outside of row 1 into the lead of the race. Paul Bailey down to 2nd. Having a brave attempt up the inside there into turn 1 was Chris Hart. He's 3rd and already back on the prowl as they head through Island Bend towards Shell Oil's corner for the first time in the race. and you're on board with the BMW of Mike Moss, the former production champion now, negotiates this hairy left-hander before they hit the brakes for the right-hand hairpin, and coming back alongside him, look, is the Seika of Paul Rose, but the inside line is covered by the BMW. They're in different classes, different categories, and with more grunt, more acceleration, the Seika gets back through to reclaim 4th position. As through the chicane they go for the first time in the race. You've got to get a good exit here because it's uphill then, over hilltop, and then this tricky downhill run into the chicane. And Paul Bailey down to 3rd place, so the Seika got through at the hairpin, and he's already under attack from Paul Rose, who is breathing down his neck, bringing the BMW with him. And this is the 2nd in Class 4, the Seat of Martin Byford being shadowed by Kevin Clark in the BMW, having made a fast start from 17th on the grid. And then we've got the S2 Smarts machine, this wonderful 350 plus brake horsepower car being driven by Rob Baker in Class 5. Now for a replay, though, of the start, and this was a hairy one. Watch the green Seika. He makes an excellent start, Chris Hart. He looks up the inside. Is there contact? Yes, there was a little bit. He's all over the curbs as the door is shut. Then the next Seika, the black Seika of Paul Rose, has to get off the throttle, and that allows the BMW of Mike Moss to steal his place. Here's the onboard view from that start with Mike Moss, and you can see it all kicking off just ahead. They all gun for the inside line. Mike is just far enough back to be able to benefit from that with a better run out of Old Hall Corner. So at the end of lap 1, out of Deer Leap, it's the McLaren of Lucky Kerrer, a couple of seconds clear of Chris Hart in the Seika in 2nd. 3rd and 4th, still nose to tail. Paul Bailey doing a good job here, fending off Paul Rose for the rest of the opening lap of the race. And then it's Mike Moss in the BMW just behind them, but hanging on to their shirt tails in 5th place. The first of the Class 3 Porsches still is Ben Klukas in the track group car, but Mark Cunningham is within a few tenths of a second just behind as they made their way down through Cascades. Oh, Mike Moss has stopped. He's gone off the road, it looks like. So the car is still running. Fumes still coming out the back. Here's a replay on board with Mike. What happened? This is on the run down through the avenue into Cascades. And, it just got twitchy. So it looked like maybe a bit of fluid, or he just missed the braking point there. But he's luckily found the escape road, and the car looks to be okay. So over hilltop on the other side of the circuit come the leaders, the top 2 as they were, the gap growing between them. 2 Class 1 cars 1st and 2nd. The Class 2 leader, though, has been overtaken for 3rd place. Paul Bailey has lost the place to the Seika. So Class 1 cars 1st, 2nd and 3rd now. Paul Bailey still leading his class. And rejoining the race, Mike Moss. He waited for them all to come back through on the other side of the circuit. He's lost a few positions, but he hasn't lost half a lap, so he's tucked in behind Mark Cunningham. Damage to the bespoke cars Porsche of Marcus Fothergill and Dave Bennett, though. Oh, straight on for the Seika. That is the Alan Purbrick car, the number 65 machine. There's an escape road here. He gets off the grass, he gets on the tarmac, but he's not exactly accelerating here, so it looks like an issue with the car. And looks like somebody else has had an issue. Now, whether that was the Seika before it went out of Alan Purbrick, or whether it's from the Ginetta, Sarah Moore and Mo Ritson before they went out, but Marshall's cleaning up some fluid down there in the pit lane as the race leader, untroubled, comes through and continues to pull away from Chris Hart. And then in 3rd place it should now, and is now, Paul Rose in his Seika. Paul Bailey in 4th place, 5th and 6th, still tied together, the 2 Porsches. They're battling for the Class 3 lead as well, these 2. So it's Ben Klukas, very experienced GT racer, but equally experienced in these types of races at least, is Mark Cunningham, who shares the car with his dad Peter. And the SG Racing Porsche number 32 closes up a little bit on the run down the hill. Still staying out on track is the damaged bespoke cars Porsche. It loses a place though, because at the inside into Old Hall Corner, the Ferrari Estates Porsche Cayman of Michael Price and Simon Clark with a nice move there. Back on board with Mike Moss. Car seems to be fine, and that's a slowing black Seika ahead, which means Paul Rose from 3rd place has got an issue. That was towards the Britain chicane. So the leader of the race is Lucky Kerrer, and then we're going to see in 2nd place Chris Hart, but we should see, into 3rd place, the Ferrari now, followed by these 2 Porsches, which are catching up actually. So the Class 2 Ferrari ahead of the Class 3 lead battle between Ben Klukas and Mark Cunningham. They're now 3rd, 4th and 5th. The Seika of Alan Purbrick comes in. The solo driver in the number 92 Ginetta is Paul Calladine. So that's a scheduled pit stop because they're putting fuel in. He's just opted to take the pit stop early. But for Alan Purbrick, after a brief conversation with the engineer, I'm afraid it looks like he's getting out of the car and his race is run. Meanwhile, this is the battle for 9th place between the Class 3 Beluga Racing Porsche, driven by Ian Humphreys, and Grant Williams aboard the Praga R12, which has won 3 races so far this season. Grant, a very accomplished, historic racer. And there is the VW of Tim Docker, 4th in Class 4, but closing fast on Martin Byford in the Seat. Martin 3rd in the category now, having lost already a place to Kevin Clark in the number 77 BMW. And there, I'm afraid, is confirmation that the ALP Racing Sacre, Alan Purbrick, is definitely out of the race, being pushed into the garage. They had trouble with the car in qualifying. It was only 18th fastest, normally a front runner, and I'm afraid it has not got very far in the race. Hopefully he'll be back out for race 2. We go back to this battle for 3rd place overall, and betwixt the 2 Porsches, the battle for the Class 3 lead. Ben Klukas, who's a pro driver with bags of national and international race experience, is all over the back of Paul Bailey. Paul, with on paper a slightly quicker car, but he's doing a good job here as an AM driver to keep Ben Klukas at bay. Paul Galladine about to rejoin the race, but I'm afraid for Paul Rose, who was running 3rd in the early stages in the Seika, it's game over. We're at 1/4 race distance then. The leader, Lucky Carra, in the McLaren is 16 seconds clear of Chris Hart in the Seika. And over Hilltop come the 2 Porsches, but not a Ferrari. So Ben Klukas is up to 3rd. Mark Cunningham is up to 4th place. And then it's the BMW of Mike Moss. He's now in 5th position in the number 18 car and leading Class 2 as well. There, eventually over Hilltop, comes Paul Bailey. So he was running 3rd. He's now dropped to the tail end of the top 6, and he's lost about 7 or 8 seconds somewhere, and I think we're about to find out where. It's a replay, and it was coming out of Lodge Corner. There you see the Ferrari to the left on the grass and having a wide moment. We didn't see what caused it, but Paul Bailey dropping back at the end of the previous lap. And into the pits comes Lucky Carra. Now, is that a scheduled stop? It's pretty early. They normally share the driving evenly to Lee Frost and Lucky Carra. So into the lead of the race goes the green Seika. No, it's a problem. So the race leader in with a problem, now having a drama at the back rear corner of the car. And that means up to 2nd place now comes the Class 3 leader, Ben Klukas, in the track group Porsche. Up to 3rd place overall comes Mark Cunningham. So 2 Class 3 cars run 2nd and 3rd, and I'm afraid Lucky Carra is out of the car and out of the race. His teammate Lee Frost, there to the right of the picture, doesn't even get in the car, and more drama for Bespoke Cars as around goes the number 69 Porsche. Already got damage on the first lap of the race, had a spin there down at Hislops. There's your Class 4 leader, Max Coates, who made a really good start to the race, gained several positions into Old Hall Corner. So Max is 9th overall, Kevin Clark in the BMW 10th overall. They're the top 2 in the class, and there's been a change around for 3rd in Class 4 because you can see that Tim Docker in the VW is now ahead of the Seat of Martin Byford and Ash Woodman. There is the Porsche of Mark Cunningham, which has just had a spin. It was running 3rd overall. It's very uncharacteristic of Mark to go off the road, so he's trying to play catch-up. There's one of the cars that pitted early. We're halfway into the race now, but it was very early on that Paul Calladine made his mandatory pit stop. As a solo driver, you're free to choose when you come in, and the same is true of Tim Docker, who made an early stop as well. So he'll be looking to push on now while the rest of the cars make their pit stops. They're the Praga, then the Class 1 Praga. Grant Williams handing over to regular driver Tim Gray. From 5th place, Paul Bailey hands the Ferrari over to Andy Schultz. That was the pole-sitting car. Still going well is the Rob Baker-driven S2 Smarts car, the Class 5 car. Good to see that going well after some early season troubles, but it's back on the pace here at Oulton Park. Not a good day though for Bespoke Cars, picking up damage on lap 1, a spin a little while ago as well, so work to be done to that car. And after its spin, Mark Cunningham and Peter Cunningham deciding to change tyres on their Porsche, the left rear coming off before Mark changes over to Dad for the second half of the race. Couldn't have wished for better weather than we've enjoyed here at Oulton Park. A very lively first half of the race as well. Now, effectively, this is the leader of the race. Not yet, because all the pit stops are not done, but it's Steve Harris in the Seika. He's got less of an advantage over the Porsche now, though, which is driven by Marcus Jewell. And effectively back up to 3rd place from what was 5th before the pit stops is the SG Race Engineering Ferrari, now driven by the very rapid Andy Schultz. So the 2 lead cars that haven't yet pitted, and Mike Moss, you ride with him now, so he leads the race overall by nearly a lap from those 3 cars you just saw. But right behind him, 2nd on the track, is the 991 Beluga Racing car of Ian Humphreys, the Porsche, running nose to tail with the BMW. Tim Gray is going to be in the mix as well. He's absolutely flying in the Class 1 Praga R1T. And now we've got side-by-side action, and it's Andy Schultz going through on Marcus Jewell. The Ferrari, the Class 2 car, ahead of the Class 3 car. Marcus, though, still leads his category. Kevin Clark leads Class 4 in the BMW, but he hasn't yet pitted. So second in the category at the moment, the white Seat, the DAT racing machine now driven by Guy Colclough. Third in the class, already having made an early pit stop, is Tim Docker, and Tim is the quicker of the two at the moment. And then fourth in the category, the number 74 Ferrari Estates Porsche Cayman, and Michael Price and Simon Clark. Into the pits comes Emily Linscott in the Ginetta, and look, the car's been off the road. Lots of grass in the radiator. It will cost Emily time, but it's better than the car overheating. And there is Kevin Clark, a rapid driver, a Class 4 leader, apparently running on old tyres, doing a good job, but yet to make his pit stop. We're into the final 10 minutes of the race here at Oulton Park. The teams have done everything they can. It's now about watching the screens and waiting for the cars to come through. And this is the battle for the lead of the race. Andy Schultz in the Ferrari has caught up now to Steve Harris in the Seika. The Class 1 car leads, the Class 2 car just behind. But Andy Schultz is pulling alongside and having a look as they run back out of view. There's his teammate Paul Bailey, who did a very good job in the first stint of the race. And another car flying up through the order is the Praga R1T. Tim Gray dummies one way, goes down the inside and moves ahead of Mike Moss to grab fourth place. And he's still got time to get one or two more positions the way he's flying along. Just behind them in fifth place, an excellent drive this from Ian Humphreys in the Beluga Racing 991 GT3 Cup car. That is second in Class 3 behind the track group Marcus Jewell, Ben Kluka's car. And there you can see the Ferrari already through. So he must have done it down at Shellwell's corner. Over Hilltop he was well clear, and he's the leader of the race. Andy Schultz ahead then of Steve Harris. And meanwhile, this is the battle for the lead of Class 4. Tim Docker looking down the inside into Old Hall corner by Guy Colclough. He's late enough on the brakes to be able to keep him at bay. Kevin Clark, who did lead the class, has now made his pit stop. He's come out in fourth place behind the Ferrari Estates Porsche, which runs third in class. So Tim Docker trying his best there, but losing ground on the run out of Old Hall corner. But he'll regroup himself and maybe having another go. Max Coates, his teammate, watching on from the pit wall there. Now this is Emily Linscott in the Ginetta, all over, and now going past Peter Cunningham. A great move from the Class 4 car on the Class 3 Porsche. Just 2 minutes of the race remain. There is the second place Seika, and right behind it now is the third place Praga. So Tim Gray has found a way past Marcus Jewell's Porsche, and he's homing in very rapidly on the Seika. That car has so much downforce through the quick turns like Old Hall corner. And look at this, he swoops around the outside and just dives past and into second position. Fantastic move, and that is for the Class 1 lead as well. They're having an excellent run. Marcus Jewell, Ben Klukas did a sterling job, as we know he always does in the first stint. So that Porsche is on for Class 3 honours and an excellent fourth place overall. Having got a brief stint in the lead, the Beluga Porsche runs next in fifth place. And it's good to see Paul Rose back out there. The car which ran third early on in the race. It's going to get some test laps and hopefully have a go for race 2. Here's a replay of that move from Tim Gray. He was about 4 car lengths back at Old Hall corner, and there he is sweeping around the outside to get second place right at the end of the race. Waiting for the money shot then, here's the flag, and here is the race-winning car. Andy Schultz and Paul Bailey take their second overall victory of the season, and with that, they will extend their lead in the Dunlop Endurance Championship. Confirmation of the final results then, a late stop-go penalty put Mike Moss down to 6th place in the end, and 7th, and holding on to the Class 4 victory, DAT Racing Sad of Guy Colclough and Max Coates.
Andy had put us on P1, and I'd gone out, and I just was really wondering why so many cars were overtaking me. I think 4 or 5 cars overtook me. And I thought, what is going on? And it would appear that the competition had decided to put the pro drivers in first and the AMs second. So I brought the car in 5th, and that gave Andy a fantastic chance to overtake all the other guys and win the whole overall race. Fantastic.
It was relatively straightforward. There was a bit more pace in the car early on, but then the tyres start to go off, and then you just sort of making sure you get to the end of the race. So it was nice, good race for us.
And there was an excellent Class 4 victory for DAT Racing.
It was a good start, got up in ahead of the Praga and the Porsche. So yeah, I think that paid dividends in the end. The others kind of got caught behind them in the first few laps and allowed me to pull away and get a nice gap.
When Max handed the car over to me, obviously we had a good lead in the class, and I tried to be safe and keep it on the island, and managed to throw it off actually coming out of Izzy's. Well, because I was concentrating on behind and watching where Tim was, but apart from that, it was pretty incident-free.
During the break, the teams were busy preparing and in some cases repairing the cars, ready for race 2. EDF Motorsport checking Paul Caladine's Ginetta after a late race spin, but unable to fix the Seat of Ash Woodman and Martin Byford after a heavy crash put them out of race 1. With the race 1 results setting the grid, it was the Ferrari of Paul Bailey that led the charge into Old Hall Corner, with the Praga of Grant Williams alongside. But another demon start from Chris Hart put the green JPR Seika straight into second, with Mike Moss also passing the Praga into turn 1. Meanwhile, Paul Rose in the black Seika began his charge from the back of the grid. And on the run down the avenue, Hart rocketed past Bailey to take the lead of the race. Just behind the Porsches of Mark Cunningham and Marcus Jewell ran wheel to wheel, with Cunningham grabbing the Class 3 lead. Also making early progress, Paul Caladine aboard the Ginetta G50 as he sought to make amends for his race 1 exit. At the end of lap 1, Hart had built a 2.8 second lead, but it was close for second as Moss closed Bailey down and propelled his BMW into the Class 2 lead at Old Hall. But it all came unstuck 60 seconds later as Moss got out of shape at Druitt. A great save at the high-speed right-hander, but he would fall behind Bailey, Cunningham and Rose, who was already about to move up to 4th from the back of the grid. 2 laps later and Bailey found himself having to defend second place again, this time from the Class 3 leader, Mark Cunningham, enjoying a brilliant start to the race from 12th on the grid. After hassling the Ferrari through the chicane, the Porsche pounced on the run up Clay Hill. Sadly, Paul Rose's rise up the order was short-lived, as engine dramas forced him to retire. And just 10 minutes into the race, Guy Colclough suddenly slowed down in the DAT Racing Seat, the car eventually grinding to a halt on track and bringing about an early safety car. This would prove key, as the single-driver entries were able to get their mandatory pit stops out of the way, while everyone else was stuck behind the safety car. An excellent restart saw Moss passing Bailey into Old Hall and then quickly dispensing the Porsche of Cunningham to reclaim second place. But alas, he was thwarted once more, this time permanently, as the BMW expired just a few laps later. Come the mid-race stops, and the top 2 of Hart and Harris and the Cunninghams were about to lose out, their advantage not big enough to prevent early stopper Ian Humphreys coming through to grab the lead in the Beluga Racing Porsche. They also lost out to the track group Porsche and the SB Race Engineering Ferrari, now driven by Ben Klukas and Andy Schultz respectively, both enjoying a ferocious battle for second place. Despite struggling with a car that was running on old tyres thanks to a pre-race puncture, Tim Docker had moved into the Class 4 lead. Ultimately, he had enough in hand to fend off the fast-closing Pirelli Estates Porsche of Michael Price and Simon Clark. Meanwhile, Caladine had charged through to take 3rd in class, earning him the Sunoco Driver of the Day award. But the afternoon belonged to Ian Humphreys and Beluga Racing, who held on to take their maiden victory in the championship.
I think the safety car was driver advantage. But in single driver, you know, you get into a bit of a rhythm and it just comes back to you. A bit slippy at the end. Ferraris were coming very quickly behind. So I think one more lap and it would have been a very different story.
And a gritty Class 4 win from Tim Docker keeps him second in the overall standings.
The car was a dog, and I just managed to hang on, albeit that the boys in the Porsche, the Cayman, you know, were taking chunks out of me, but they just ran out of time.
Another strong day for Bailey and Schultz means they'll head to Snetterton at the top of the standings. Join us next time for round 6 of the Dunlop Endurance Championship.